I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about some of that today is Ted Okada, Chief Technology Officer at FEMA. Ted, thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
I'd like to ask and start with, what's an example of an IT or operational or cultural challenge that your agencies face when adopting an as-a-service model, in particular, to be able to present a faster or more effective way of delivering on your mission?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have to always come back to some of the foundational principles within FEMA itself. We really are always laser focused, and I think with our administrator, people focused, and both for the survivors that are affected by increasingly complex disasters which have significant consequences for them and their communities that they live in, and people focused in terms of the workforce that we are trying to nurture and grow in the years ahead, and now in the years ahead, to help meet the needs of disaster survivors and our citizens in our nation. So that's really the first order, to be people first. And everything else really flows from that, whether it's a software as a service or low code, no code, or pro code, being augmented by the new world of AI. All of that is really secondary. What's really primary are just the people first, developing the right policies and processes that really drive the outcomes for survivors. And then lastly, the kind of infrastructure, the kinds of things that we do to prepare our workforce to meet the needs of our citizens in our great nation and those who are hit by complex disasters or emergencies.
And next, how are you using various degrees of managed services to meet mission objectives, and what are you keeping in-house?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think increasingly that line is blurred, right? So everything should be managed. When you think about it, management assumes a manager. But I understand what you mean by managed service, whether it belongs to, let's say, another agency or another component within Homeland Security, which we're a part of. I understand that principle. There are actual conversations around that. But really, at the end, I'll kind of come back to the first answer, which is, what's going to drive an outcome for a disaster survivor? I think what's fascinating is in the world, the new world, really the breakout year for AI this past year, the augmentation that generative artificial intelligence does bring, you'll see a sort of a shift left, right? So from pro code to low code to no code, and there's no such thing as no code in terms of a SaaS managed service. There's always some declarative, infrastructure as code or something like that, right? So to say that there's absolutely no code and it's just a managed service is not entirely true. I think what we are trying to develop within our workforce is to be sort of technically literate in terms of where technical means and technical software development is going. They don't have to be an expert, but understanding that if they, let's say, do data science and statistics and just basic analysis with a spreadsheet, helping our workforce sort of plot a chart ahead, plot a map ahead in terms of future technologies. And then the important question is, how do we recruit the workforce to match that need? We are really trying to look for the next generation to come into FEMA, who are pretty literate in things like data science, but beyond that, the humanities, history, emergency management, fire rescue, right? Those who come out of the ranks of the fire service at local fire departments, county emergency managers, all the way up to the state level, right? So we want to hire people who are experts in civil engineering, right? Electrical engineering, stormwater systems. Those are the kinds of things that skills that we need. It's just across the board.
And then next, where do you see as a service or managed services, kind of in the IT realm, if you will, making the most significant impact on your agency's operations?
So it's three of basically the same question, but I'll throw it in again. It only makes a difference if it makes an impact on disaster survivors. Okay, bottom line, right? How does it impact our operations? Can we communicate with our state and local tribal territorial partners? We have something like 567 recognized federal tribes in the U.S. If you can't communicate with our governmental partners, you don't have incident command, as we call it, right? The National Incident Management System. So whatever can speed our action and getting resources to our partners in a disaster, that's really critical, right? We don't get time back in a disaster. So all of that technology, all of those process improvements are really designed to drive at a people-first, outcome-based, ethos that's driven by our FEMA values: compassion, fairness, integrity, and respect. If we can get those things right, I think that we're well on our way to succeed in our mission.
And then what are some lessons that you've learned that you might share with others trying to also advance your efforts here?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that in the session that we just had, which is, we're always recruiting for people who have the nascent capability to manage well, right? So manage others, manage your team, manage sideways, upwards, downwards, but especially being a good people manager, we're looking for those skills. Those are soft skills. I'm a big fan of this concept called psychological safety. I think you can see it in the most performant teams in any organization. You can see how empathy and really not only valuing but nurturing diversity. I've been recently talking to our disability integration group, and how do we make our technologies and the way we design meetings to be more accessible to those with disabilities, because the richness that they bring to our workforce is just, it's invaluable. And those perspectives are really critical, because when we deploy our teams, it is those who are least able to access services, which the greatest impact, the negative impacts of a disaster will affect them. So the more we focus on those who are the most marginalized, the most disenfranchised, and that requires teams that are intrinsically diverse. So we're not looking for managers who can actually master those soft skills, empathy, listening, reflective and reflexive behavior change within our own selves, right? I want to every day find out how I can concretely change my behavior to be a better manager. So I try to invite input regularly with my own team and sort of model it for them, and they can model it for others. So, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, Ted Okada, thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.